Hello and welcome back to Michelle Sews Again. I'm Michelle. Today I think I'm going to do something fun, at least I think it's fun. I wanted to start a tag video. I'm hoping some other content creators, whether it's YouTube or Instagram, will join in because it's just questions that I'm curious about what other sewers or sewists, whatever you call yourself, like how you think about some of these things. So feel free to join in, whether in the comments below or tag me if you're going to make a video or tag me on Instagram. Yeah, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on these things. So I've got a list of questions that I'm going to ask and then I'm going to answer. And and I'll list the questions in the description box below so that you can gather them and follow along and do your own version. I'd love to hear what you have to say. All right, so question number one is, when did you start sewing, or how long have you been sewing? So mine's kind of a two-parter. I started sewing in college. I had to take a sewing class for my major. I was a business major with a merchandising focus, and because I wanted to be a retail buyer, which I then did go on to do. I kind of switched over to the merchandise planning side, which is more analytics, and that's kind of what my background is. But I did have to take a sewing class in college, and I loved it. I made way more garments than I needed to for the class. I loved it so much that my boyfriend at the time actually bought me a sewing machine for Christmas. And I kept sewing for a couple of years. And then it just kind of fell by the wayside as life kind of got in the way. And so it had been probably over 25 years since I had sewn anything, and I had long gotten rid of the sewing machine. So when the shutdown first started last year, the beginning of March, I decided that I wanted to start sewing again. I just needed something, a creative outlet, something to keep me from going crazy because I was stuck inside all the time. So I bought I got a Brother sewing machine. I bought it on Amazon. It's a couple $100, so it's not anything, fantastic. But it's doing the job so far. And I figure once I'm like retrained and, learning better and better techniques, that I'll eventually upgrade. But for now, it's doing the job. And so like I said, I started again in March of last year, and I've slowly been like improving my techniques and learning new tips and tricks and all that stuff from watching all the fabulous YouTube channels on YouTube. Let's see. Question number two. What is the worst garment you've ever made? So I had quite a few of them. When I first started sewing again last year, because everything was shut down, I was buying fabric online and I didn't know what I was buying. So I had a lot of crappy fabric. The prints were fabulous. I mean, I'm very drawn, you can't tell by what I'm wearing today, but I'm very drawn to a lot of color and a lot of prints. So that's what I was buying, and I love mixing and matching prints. So I had an Anthropologie shirt that I wanted to knock off, and I found a pattern that was pretty close. And unfortunately, it's not as cute on me as I wanted it, as I had in my head, just because of my size. But the shirt, the fabric that I made it out of, it came out terrible. So, and I had probably 3 or 4, maybe even 5, like what I would call sewing fails when I first started sewing again. So I have since purged them, but I believe I have photos of most of them. So I'll probably like insert them up here just so you can see, and I'll include the pattern that I was using. Now the pattern's not bad. It's not the pattern's fault. It's my fault and the fabric that I chose. So let's just keep that straight, because as I progress and get better, I do want to try that pattern again, because I do actually really like it. I just need a better fabric that flows. It was just so stiff. It looked like a tent on me, and because I'm already wide, it was not flattering at all. All right, number 3. What have you made that you're the most proud of? And I made a Sapporo coat out of boiled wool last year, and I'm really proud of it. It came out really pretty. I've worn it. I wore it a few times before I left Philadelphia. We actually ended up putting quite a bit of things in storage. What we didn't purge, we put in storage because we think that eventually when we retire, it'll probably be back somewhere up in the Pennsylvania like countryside. So we put stuff in storage, and I put all of my coats in storage except for one in case I need it when I'm traveling back and forth to Philadelphia. My husband has 2 grown daughters that live in Philly, so we'll continue to go back there to visit. So I did keep one coat, but I had a whole closet full of coats. I put them all in storage. And the Sapporo coat went in storage. But I'll insert a picture. I'm really proud of that. It wasn't super difficult, but it's just the way that it all came together. It just looked really pretty. And the few times that I've worn it, I've gotten really great compliments, and people didn't even know that I made it. So I'm proud of that. How big is your fabric stash? So mine, I showed in my last video, is not huge, but it's plenty for me and what I'm doing these days. I counted, and I believe I've got 42 pieces of fabric, and they range anywhere from 2 to 4 yards. The majority of them are about 3 yards. And then I've got in the upper left-hand box is a bunch of, not swatches, but they're like smaller pieces that came in different sewing subscription boxes. So yeah, so that's my stash, and I don't know if you can tell, I kind of have it color coded because that's the way I do. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 5, what other crafts do you do? So I think I mentioned before that I knit. So all of those bins, the blue and the beige, and then those pattern ones at the bottom, those are all completely full of yarn. All of those bags at the top are full of yarn, and those are projects that have already been started. I've been knitting, again, since college. I grew up in Louisiana, and the summer after I started college, my dad moved from Louisiana to Michigan, and he was remarried, and so my stepmother flew down to Louisiana because I was going to go and spend the summer with them. It was after my first year of college. So I was going to go spend the summer with them. So my stepmother flew down. We drove my car up so that I could have my car for the summer. And I spent the summer up there. And while I was there, I didn't know anybody except for my dad and my stepmom and my stepbrothers. So my stepmother brought me to, she had just started knitting, and she was going to this local yarn store, and the owner was teaching her how to knit. So she knew that I liked doing crafty stuff. I had not yet started sewing at this point. So she brought me with her to the knitting shop, and the owner wanted me to learn how to knit making a pot holder. And I was 17, 18. I was like, I'm never going to use a pot holder. Why would I make that? And she's like, no, it's just so you can learn the technique. I was like, I don't want to make something I'm not going to use. She said, well, and I could tell she was getting frustrated with me, but I was 17. I didn't care. She said, well, make a scarf. I said, I live in Louisiana. I'm never going to need a scarf. So we finally settled on a sweater, and she's like, you can't, let me rephrase that. I finally settled on a sweater. And she was like, your very first project can't be a sweater. And I'm like, sure it can. The naivety of youth, right? Anyway, so it was a simple pattern. It was 2 squares, and all you had to do was knit together the shoulders and then the side seams, and you had like a sleeveless boat neck sweater. But it wasn't like, I had to learn how to knit and purl because it had a knit purl binding, and then the rows were alternating knit. It must have been knit to purl to because it had an alternating pattern. I actually still have the sweater. I will put a picture of it up here. But I made, I think, and I had barely any mistakes in that thing. She was quite impressed with me when when I took it back to learn how to like sew the seams together. Anyway, I ended up making I want to say 4 like lightweight sweaters that I could wear in Louisiana. I made 2 tank tops and that sleeveless sweater. I think I made 2 of the sleeveless sweaters and 2 tank tops that summer. So and then as far as other crafts, I also just bought a Cricut machine last year. So I haven't delved into that a whole lot, but I've made a couple of mugs, just some minor things. That's something I want to get more involved in now that I've got my space set up. And I also do cross stitching. I have not done that in quite some time. I'll insert a few pictures of things that I've done. I used to do it a lot, like back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I made quite a few projects, but I haven't really done anything since then. One of the things that I'm most proud of, that's actually the one that I'll probably put a picture in here of, is a father's tree that I did. My dad has done his family history all the way back to the 1600s. So I did the father's tree where it's just this beautiful tree with the first generation. It's just, it's not a family tree because it's not all the branches. It's just my dad, his dad, his dad, and so on. So it's just the straight father lineage, which I'm also going to do my mother's tree, but I need to do a little bit more ancestral history before I have enough names to make it meaningful. Okay, the next question is, how big is your pattern stash? So we already talked about fabric. Now let's talk about patterns. I'm gonna throw pictures in here of mine. I'll get to this in a second, but I have 42 patterns in these 2 bins that I'm going to show you pictures of. And then I have like 7 or 8 more that are rolled up in cardboard tubes that I got from PDF plotting that I just haven't taken out and cut up yet. So I've just left them in the tubes. So I'd say in all, I have in the neighborhood of 50 patterns. They're mostly tops. I have a few bottom pants. I think I have 1 skirt because I'm not really a skirt person. And I have a couple of dresses, not a lot. But the majority of my patterns are either shirts or I have a few jackets. So that's kind of my pattern stash. The next question, I'm really curious what your answers are, is how do you organize your patterns? Mine are a hot mess right now. I have the PDF patterns that I have cut out, or even not even cut out, but folded, are sitting in a tray. And then my my paper patterns that have come from different companies that are in, wrappers are in a drawer that goes in a craft storage unit that I have. I really need to find a better organization system for my patterns because I'm not happy with it right now. So I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. I'm going to do a little bit of research and see how other sewists on YouTube are organizing their fabric patterns, but I'd love to hear what you have to say. And then the last question I have is, speaking of PDF and paper patterns, which do you prefer? Do you prefer a printed a pattern that's already printed, it comes nice and folded in in an envelope, or are you happier to download and either print out and tape them together yourself, or download and send to a company like PDF Plotting? Let me know what your preference is. I have done all 3. I absolutely hate downloading, cutting, and taping together. So I did that for a few patterns. I didn't enjoy it. This is supposed to be a hobby that I enjoy, that it helps me relax. It helps de-stress me. So that, because I don't enjoy it, I'm not doing that anymore. So if I do PDF patterns, then I am more than happy to send them to PDF plotting and have them print them out and ship them to me. I don't know if you've used them at all. This is not sponsored at all. I usually wait until I have several that I need printed because they do have a minimum charge, but they print super quick and ship super quick. So you have them within a couple of days. So that is if I have to do a PDF download because it's an indie pattern company that only does PDF, or I'm buying it from overseas, or whatever the reason is, then I will download them, save them up until I have a few, and then send them to PDF plotting and have them print them up for me. So that's all the questions that I have. If you have any additional questions, then put them in the comments and I will be happy to respond. But I'd love to see what anybody else does with this. Let's go with, I'm gonna do a hashtag for this. I think I'm just gonna do hashtag sewer curiosity. So I'll put that in the description box as well. So yeah, let me know what you think about this. If you are rejoining me from having already subscribed, thank you so much for coming back. If you think that you would like more of the content that I'm providing, please subscribe, hit that thumbs up button so that other people can see what I'm bringing to the table. And please comment below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye.